It's time now for the award-winning #1 local talk show in Northeast Pennsylvania, The Sam Lesante Show. Now here's your host, Sam Lesante.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Lesante. Thank you for joining us on The Sam Lesante Show. Folks, I've been talking about coal to fuel for many, many years and to what it means not only for northeastern Pennsylvania, but also to for the country. The person who has been a principal person involved with this coal to fuel plant, John Rich, probably the pioneer in getting this hopefully off the ground. He's my guest today, and the reason why I asked John to be on the show is because personally, folks, I'm frustrated. And I'm hoping that after my frustration and talking to John, we may be able to get something done. I'm going to encourage you to contact your congressmen and your senators, U.S. senators, as well as the White House, and have them move on something. We've done this before, and I appreciate the response that you had. To learn more about this, if you don't get as much as you could from the show, ultracleanfuels.com. That's ultracleanfuels.com. You go to the website. John, how are you?
Fine, Sammy. How are you?
Listen, I appreciate you coming on the show. Yeah. Okay, I know this is. I think I'm very frustrated, but I'm going to try to control my emotions here. And once again, John, what I like to do is educate. You know, I've been talking about educating people about voting for the right people, not necessarily Democrats or Republicans, but learn about the candidates, learn what you're doing, and then make an intelligent decision. Let's go back to the mid-'90s, okay, when you first, your family decided that you were going to move into the direction of taking coal and making fuel of it. Give me a little history.
This really started, the whole concept started. The whole concept, at least from my perspective, of converting a solid feedstock to liquid transportation fuel started with gasification. And you've heard a lot about that subsequently, but it's basically a large static vessel. Solid feedstock is micronized or crushed or pulverized like it is in so many other existing coal-fired power plants. In the gasifier, it's converted to hydrogen and carbon monoxide and CO2, some CO2 that's concentrated, which creates an opportunity all of its own. But the hydrogen and carbon monoxide is then not burned, but put in contact with a catalyst. This technology is commercial, it's available. Once it's in contact with the catalyst, it converts to a waxy substance, just like candle wax, like you have on your Christmas, with your Christmas decorations. That candle wax is then treated into a zero sulfur high cetane diesel fuel. The technology's out there. It's economically viable. It's commercial. And when we go back to the early days when you and I first spoke, the technology's only more matured since then. There's know-how out there, there's commercial technology out there to take solid feedstocks. Waste coal is what we've always talked about. It could be clean coal, it could be run-of-mine coal, it could be washed coal, it could be biomass. Over in Holland, they're micronizing and processing chicken manure. But there's other biomass feedstocks that mitigate CO2 entirely. But the net effect is a zero sulfur, high cetane, clear liquid transportation fuel. That's what this country needs. That's where the job opportunity is.
Now, let's go back a little bit, okay? Because you see, to me, this sounds so simple, and maybe I'm an idiot, and maybe I can't understand things, okay? Now, here is a project that you've been working on, and it's been proven in South Africa. They're doing it in South Africa. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, when you started this project and you had many people from Washington coming in, you also had people from China come in, correct? Now, they came in, and probably about 3 years ago, was it 4 years ago, when China, when the people from
maybe more like 5 years ago.
5 years ago, they came in here and they talked to. What was that meeting like? What were they looking for?
They came in here. They came in to take our. We were out at that time out in front on this, incidentally, and the Chinese came in and on two separate occasions from Shenhua Coal Company, the largest coal company in China, wanting to understand our approach, and I was relatively candid with them. But the approach is simple: gasify, then liquefy the syngas into a transportation fuel. Now go on the internet, and they're moving ahead with the construction.
This is the point. The point is they came here, they saw what could be done, and now they're doing it in China. All right, now, when we first started, we showed all the gook. It was the gook, all the waste. and you were cleaning this up. When people think of coal, not particularly here in northeastern Pennsylvania, or people who are around coal understand what you can do for the environment, not really realizing also that it is not that easy anymore to strip coal without all permits and bondings and everything that you have to satisfy the state and the U.S. government with. Am I correct?
Oh, no, well, I mean, the regulations are, there's one obstacle, it seems, after the next, and there's a great deal of uncertainty now with the regulations, the way they're being proposed. But the idea here is you take the waste coal, which is a hydrocarbon, and you produce from that feedstock hydrogen and carbon monoxide primarily, okay? Now that then becomes, those molecules become liquid transportation fuels that can go into the existing distribution infrastructure, into the existing vehicles. No vehicles have to be changed. We demonstrated that with a vehicle we drove to St. Louis. In the meantime, the CO2 is concentrated. The CO2 then can be sold into the Northeast. We've worked these issues all out. There's a big market for CO2 in the beverage sector. It goes into soda. There's an industrial application for CO2. You see the vessels going down the road. The irony is much of that CO2 comes from wells that are actually drilled for in southern West Virginia, out in the Midwest, where they actually take CO2 out of the ground to market it. I'm saying use a byproduct CO2 and cap those type of wells, and you're not adding any more CO2 to the atmosphere, if and to the extent it's the problem people say it is. I frankly don't believe it when CO2 only represents less than 0.3% of the atmosphere for starters. But nonetheless, we can also commingle biomass. When you do that, you mitigate CO2 entirely. So if someone's hung up on the CO2 issue, gasification-based approaches, making liquids from biomass or solid feedstocks, offer up opportunities that refiners don't have when it comes to cracking crude oil. Refiners can't commingle biomass. Refiners have CO2 emanating in a dilute stream from multiple orifices throughout a refinery. Here we have one concentrated stream that we can actually sell and drive down the cost per finished gallon. And if and to the extent the sequestration concept is viable, it can go directly into the ground. It doesn't have to be concentrated. It's ready to go. Gasification-based approaches, whether you're making liquids, as we've been proposing, or you burn the syngas to make electrons, offer up opportunities that aren't available with conventional approaches to refining crude oil or burning crude oil.
So now we're hearing for many, many years about our dependency on oil, okay? To me, my personal opinion, I think it's nonsense. I think they just say that just to make people feel good around the United States, but that's my personal opinion. Now, John Rich, the Rich family, WMPI, okay, you've invested millions of dollars of your own money into this project, okay? Now, it comes down to what's the problem here, okay? We do know one thing. Assuming everything was okay and you're ready to move, which honestly, John, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, will the plant be good? Our conversation was today, say, John, how's the plant doing? I see you're building a second plant. You provided 300 jobs, et cetera, okay?
Well,
but we're not talking that now.
No, we aren't. We've cleared the site. The permits were issued. The trades were strong advocates and supporters, signed up to the labor agreements. We've been tripped up since then. The problem, you tell me what the problem is, because
I'll tell you what the problem is.
I don't know what the problem is anymore when you take this into consideration. We export, what's oil today, $80 a barrel?
Sure.
10 million barrels we import. $800 million a day goes out the door to buy liquid transportation fuels. And $800 million a day. Suppose we had 10% of that business. 10% of 800 million is $80 million a day, and any way you cut it, that eventually works its way to salaries. And if you were paying, do the arithmetic, if you're paying somebody, say $40 an hour, all in, with benefits, they don't need handouts, with benefits, that's 200,000 jobs. Yeah. That's 200,000 jobs that have continuity, you can take a mortgage out on, but no, what are we doing? We're putting these concepts aside for notions, for other reasons I've yet to fully understand, and continue to buy foreign oil like it's for free.
But you see, John, the government knows what they're doing. They know how to run business. They know what they're doing. And that's why we're in the sad case we're at. Hold that thought. Folks, my guest is John Rich. Looking at creating jobs, looking at the environment, looking at what's done in less dependency. Folks, I think it's a lot of nonsense we're hearing. We've been hearing it for years and years. And also Republicans and Democrats. Not only Democrats, but Republicans who have said a lot of rhetoric, a lot of talk, okay? There's only one person that I can remember sat right where Mr. Rich sat and was truly interested and sincere, was Senator Rick Santorum. And I'll tell you about that comment that we made. And also, a little later on the show, we have Mayor Lou Barletta coming on the show. I'd like to find out from Mayor Lou Barletta where he stands on this project, or we get the same rhetoric from Mr. Barletta. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Sam Lesante Show, folks. My guest is John Rich. He's president of WMPI. He's the gentleman that has started in the mid-90s of taking coal and making it into fuel, creating thousands of jobs, making our country less dependency on fuel. We, as John mentioned in the first segment, we're spending $800 to $1 billion a day bringing foreign oil in, and now we're talking about, well, where we're at with the plant. Where we're at with the plant is that we're being held up in certain areas with the I think, nonsense and bull crap that we're getting from Congress and Washington. But that's my personal opinion. John, continue on. What's the problem? Why isn't this plant now built? We talked 3-4 years ago. You were supposed to have groundbreaking. Now, are you looking for grant money?
No. And that $100 million we talked about some time ago, that was a loan. That had to be paid back. It wasn't stimulus dollars. It wasn't a gift. It wasn't a grant. Early on, I think it was Senator Specter that characterized it as a grant. It was never a grant. So that's not the case. But you know what, Sammy? I think where are we with the project? You know the best thing, and to take advantage of the program, encourage your listeners to call Washington, call the representative, ask what the problem. And let them ask the problem. Well, if I were to get into that, we don't have time for me to get into that. It's being investigated, but it's an absolute crime that this country, as important as liquid transportation fuels are, doesn't do something definitive about it. We don't export dollars for electrons, for electricity, although there's money being put into ways to produce more electricity. We don't export dollars for natural gas, although there might be a little bit imported here and there. We don't export dollars for firewood or coal, but we export all this money for liquids. Why not focus on how to stop that? Because every dollar we keep here is a job. And it's a job that you can take a mortgage out on. I've said this how many times? Because we have an appetite for liquids. You can talk electric vehicles. We're not going to change out the vehicle fleet overnight. It's not going to happen for many, many years, if it ever does happen. But there's always going to be a need for liquids in airplanes, in trains, and heavy equipment. The simplest thing is take the technology that's available, whether it's, and natural gas is candidate feedstock too, not to mention the solids, the waste coal and prepared coal, and convert that into a hydrogen and carbon monoxide and then liquefy.
Okay, and we cleared up the environment issue because that's what we keep on here. But you remind me of, John, I have a cartoon character that I like to make and put in national papers. You have a building burning, okay? It's burning to the ground. Flames are coming up. And there you are with the fire truck, and you have all the facilities and the hoses and everything to put the fire out. And I see Washington going, hold it just a second. We know what to do with this building, okay? And meanwhile, as you're there, you have the solution to put that fire out because you have all the opportunities. And this is what I'm saying. So, folks, we're telling you this. First of all, learn about it, okay? I've said this before. I don't care if John Rich becomes a zillionaire. It has nothing to do with it. What it means is not only are we creating thousands of jobs in northeastern Pennsylvania, but could you understand, you do know this, the domino effect here? You do one plant.
We did a study like that, Sam. It's right on the website. And we drew a graph, and we did a study and we did the math. And we compared our production cost to crude oil. In other words, at what point does it start to make sense to buy crude oil, like we got weaned onto, or at 60% of our needs? At one point, and there is an if crude oil was $10 a barrel and it cost us $5 a gallon to make it, it might make more sense to buy the foreign oil. And look at the chart. Every time now with oil trading at 70 to 80, and our production costs actually at less than $3 a gallon, every time we produce a gallon, we put $2 or $3 back into the domestic economy. It makes no sense. There's an opportunity for this country. to create quality jobs. You can take a mortgage out on, you can pay benefits, you can educate your kids, and that is stop spending $800 to $1 billion a day for foreign oil.
So, all right, so now we have congressmen, U.S. senators that are telling you, and I've said this before, they're giving you a lot of rhetoric. That's only my personal opinion. I'm sorry if I offend anybody. But, you know, John, you know, you were talking, I remember you met with President Bush, and President Bush said, and I think in his car, you know, whatever you need, you know, let's see what we can move ahead. Is that correct?
That was right after he came into office. That's right. And we worked on it. We moved the ball forward. But, you know, it's
Senator Santorum sat where you sat. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I said this at the beginning, okay? And he said, there was about 3 months before election, and he said, I went into the Secretary of Energy. I said, let's quit the BSing. This project has to get off the ground.
Here's the beauty of all of that. The beauty of the federal government encouraging, endorsing, supporting a concept like this helps facilitate the financing, helps facilitate the permitting, helps move the ball forward. We don't need a $100 million grant to produce $3 a gallon product. We don't need that. It was a facilitator. We need that encouragement at the federal level. The only way you're going to get it, and again, this doesn't have to be done at the expense of big oil. This can be done in cooperation with big oil. I've said that all along. Yes, and the federal government needs to facilitate this. And in order for the federal government to facilitate something like this, they need phone calls from your viewers, from people. They need to say, why can't we have these jobs? Why must we continue to do what we've done in the past and continue to ship the kind of dollars we're shipping offshore?
When you're looking at, you're not, like here again, you're not looking for any grant money, okay? What you're looking for is support from the Congress to make this the project to move ahead.
You know, you've seen him. Every now and then you see Donald Trump goes on TV and they ask him about something and he throws the notion, hey, we're spending too much money offshore. I'm not the only one. We're not the only ones that's been saying this. Other people recognize this country can't afford to hemorrhage dollars the way it is. And it makes no sense when there's technology that can mitigate that, when there's technology without threatening the environment that can actually create the jobs here, satisfy some. We're not going to satisfy 10 million barrels a day. We just cut into that. We cut into that a dozen plants or so throughout the country and displace 1 million or 2 million barrels a day. That's quality jobs. That's tax receipts.
On a recent show, I interviewed Mayor Lou Barletta, and I talked about stimulus. And stimulus means to stimulate things, okay? What if they would have said, let's take $1 billion from the trillions of dollars that they blew away and said, here's the liquid, here's just, Mr. Rich, here's $1 billion. Let's see what you could do to stimulate the economy.
Well, the place to put stimulus dollars, and again, we're not out here.
Don't talk common sense.
No, we're not. I'm not promoting that we get stimulus dollars. I haven't done that.
I know that, but I'm just using an example here.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. If the federal government's going to inject money into something, inject it into a business opportunity that causes the exportation of dollars to stop. Don't necessarily inject it into a business opportunity where we're not exporting dollars. Like when we put windmill up, we're putting more capacity, more electrons into the grid. So conceptually, even though those electrons are underwritten by the federal government, it's driving down the cost of electrons nationwide. Somebody's getting pushed out of work somewhere. There's a plant being idled somewhere because there's incremental demand coming on, or there's incremental capacity coming on, and there's no appetite for it, for those electrons. So you're flooding a market with electrons, and you're thinking you're stimulating jobs. Well, you may build a tower, generate some electrons. All of a sudden, somewhere out there in the grid, somewhere thousands of miles away or hundreds of miles away, the plant's being shut down and somebody's being put out of work. Same thing, I'm saying that doesn't happen when we make liquid transportation fuels. We put money into a complex, we make liquids. What happens then? The dollars that are going offshore start to stay here. That's how to stimulate productivity and continuity when it comes to hiring people.
So before I bring Mayor Barletta in, because I want to ask him some questions of what he stands on this energy solution here, 1,000 jobs would be created for your plan, plus maintaining about 300 to 400 permanent jobs after the plan.
We're talking 660 primary and secondary jobs from this one small complex alone.
Okay, folks, I'm talking to John Rich. It's important, folks. Call your congressman, call the U.S. senators, ask them why nothing's happening on this liquid to fuel plant, and let's see what they say, okay? I've done it. And it's interesting how I get thrown hoops and loops and et cetera, but demand as to knowing what's going on, particularly what the fact that we're depending so much on foreign oil. I'm going to, next segment, Mayor Barletta is here. Let's find out what he's going to do for the northeastern Pennsylvania, and will it be hopefully accomplished within the next 2 years. Stay with us. Thanks for joining us, folks. I'm Sam Lesante, and you're watching the Sam Lesante Show. My guest today is John Rich. John Rich is president of WMPI, and you can go to ultracleanfuels.com to learn about this coal-to-fuel plant that should have been built many years ago. Also, you can watch this show 24/7 on SSP TV or on ultracleanfuels.com. Joining me now, Mayor Lou Barletta, as you know, folks, is running for U.S. Congress in the 11th Congressional District. And the reason, thank you, Mayor, for coming on the show. You know, you're very much familiar with this, what John has been working on since the mid-90s. First of all, what is your personal opinion, and what do you think should be done in terms of taking a plant that, you know, would be built here in northeastern Pennsylvania and doing what it would be doing?
Well, you know, let's put first things first. You know, we hear so much that we have to reduce our dependency on foreign oil. We hear that all the time. Not only because of what it will, the jobs that it will create here back in the United States, but also the fact that our dependency on foreign oil presents a clear and present danger for national security here in America. So there's good reason why we need to produce more oil here at home. And it's a fact that it will be very difficult to get the United States away from liquid fuel. There's no question about it. It will take years, decades possibly. But right here in northeastern Pennsylvania, right here at our home, we have an opportunity to become a leader in the nation in producing liquid fuels that will reduce our dependency on foreign oil. Not only coal to liquid, but we hear so much talk about the Marcellus Shale and the natural gas that is here, which can also be produced into liquid fuels. So here in northeastern Pennsylvania, we could create jobs for people back home. We're always talking about how do we create more jobs here in northeastern Pennsylvania. We could take the natural resources that the good Lord has given us here and put it to good use. You know, Sam, I'm very concerned. There was a 2009 study that talks about what the top 40 industrialized nations are doing to be innovative in the future. The United States ranked dead last. Now that is frightening. Here is an innovative idea. Here's something that we could do right here in northeastern Pennsylvania with some leadership to push this, to move this football forward, to create jobs here, and also provide this country with an alternative that will reduce that dependency. It won't replace it, but it will reduce it.
You've looked at this for many years, okay? This is not the first time that you've looked at this and with John's plant. And personally, I admire John and his family for what they're doing because this is, you know, when this happens, and I say when it's happening, this is going to be a tremendous opportunity for not only here, but also for the country. Going to Congress, if you should win, okay, what would be your stance in this energy situation?
Well, yeah, coming from northeastern Pennsylvania and fighting for jobs here in Northeast and what we could do, and also looking at our country as its future, what is the future of this nation, and looking at national security, when you look at all that, here we are in a position that we can lead, and this will be one of the issues that I am, you know, I've been known to stand up for what I believe in and not back down. And this isn't about party. I don't really care what Republicans or Democrats think about me. I'm not going to Washington for a career, Sam. I've said that. I'm going to Washington for a cause. I am going to take this technology. I am going to talk about it. I am going to try to get support for it. And hopefully, we will see it become a reality here in northeastern Pennsylvania, where this part of the state, in this part of the country, it will become a leader.
Hey, how about this idea? We drill for and pump all the oil we can get, all the liquids, we refine it into transportation fuels, and we can't produce enough that way, so we buy it offshore, right? We export $800 million a day for that. Shouldn't there be some kind of priority where we drill for and pump all we can, then we tap out, then we use all the natural gas to liquids we can possibly build, then we build all the solid feedstock facilities to liquids to satisfy. Then we talk about buying offshore. In other words, shouldn't it be a priority in our thinking? Not just jump to buying crude offshore, Maybe maybe that way there ought to be a priority established. Let's tap out. When I say tap out, I'm saying let's draw off of or draw on known technologies to produce some of the liquids before we then do what we've done so easily in the past, ship the dollars offshore.
And it's not that we're retrofitting cars and our automobiles and gas stations. It's a liquid fuel that you'll put in your car and vehicles and transportation.
You take a guy like Trump, didn't get where he got because he doesn't know what he's doing. You take a guy like Romney, and I know him, who didn't get where they got because they don't know what they're doing. And we talk about businessmen, we talk about creative ideas. We talk about a guy like John who is providing, as we speak, literally thousands of opportunity of jobs and supporting families in northeastern Pennsylvania. And again, to me, I encourage you, the viewer, folks, to call your congressman, call your U.S. senator, and find out what's happening with these what's happening with the coal-to-fuel plants. Why are they not pushing it? Mayor Barletta says if he's elected, he will definitely make that a priority. That's my concern. I've been with this since 1999. He's been with it before that. I've seen this, and that's what sends my frustration. I wish someone would tell me, we've covered all the objectives. We've covered the environment. You should see a beautiful, he has plants, we have fish, we have deer running around. It's gorgeous, okay? The strippings are gone, et cetera. It's fabulous. I don't understand it, Lou. I just don't understand it.
We need jobs, Sam. We need to put people back to work again. This country needs to be innovative again. That's what we need. We need ideas like this to invent and really advance technology here, and we have it. We were blessed with the resources here, coal in the ground, natural gas. We just have not utilized it to the best that we could.
We're borrowing money so we can ship it offshore to buy liquids.
Well,
it's just fundamentally wrong.
All right, to learn more about this, folks, it's so important to learn about it. It's election year. Mayor Barletta said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lou, that if you get to Congress, if you become elected, this will be a priority for you.
You can count on that, Sam.
Okay. UltraCleanFuels.com, SSPTV.com. You could watch the show anywhere, any place in the United States, in the world. But go to UltraCleanFuels.com to learn as much as you can about this. And then call your congressman and call your U.S. senator and just ask them what's going on with it. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.